Welcome to The Explainer. So, 1966. We all know it. It's the year that completely rewired English football's DNA. For fans, this is it, right? The absolute zenith. It was this perfect moment where culture and competition completely collided. Today, we're going to unpack the tactical gambits and the wild controversies that actually made that triumph possible. We aren't just looking at the fact that they won, but exactly how they pulled it off and why it resonated so profoundly that it's literally still etched into the public's collective memory today. Now, you absolutely cannot talk about this legendary tournament without that immortal broadcast line ringing in your ears. They think it's all over. It is now. We're going to build right toward that epic climax. But, to truly understand the weight of that moment, we have to unpack the gritty, dramatic journey it took to get there. Because it definitely wasn't a simple march to glory. No way. It was a fierce, highly debated gauntlet.
Part 1. The Tactical Gambit.
Okay, let's dive into this. Picture going into the summer of '66. You're the host nation and 16 teams have arrived. But for England, the expectations were just suffocating. They weren't just expected to do well, they were expected to win the whole thing. So what was manager Alf Ramsey's response? Well, he gave his team a highly unorthodox identity. They became the Wingless Wonders. At a time when out-and-out wingers were the absolute gold standard of attacking flair, Ramsey essentially ripped up the playbook. He sacrificed wide attackers for a narrow, incredibly robust, and tireless defensive foundation. It was a huge gamble, super controversial at the time, but it became the crucial engine that powered their entire run.
Part 2. Escalating battles in the knockouts.
So the campaign actually didn't start with a bang. It was a pretty dour, frustrating 0-0 draw against Uruguay. But as they found their footing with wins over Mexico and France, the difficulty rapidly accelerated. We're talking barely scraping by with a grueling 1-0 win over Argentina in the quarters, followed by a really tense 2-1 victory against a incredibly dangerous Portugal side in the semis. And that quarterfinal against Argentina, that wasn't some sanitized, clean victory. It was an absolute war. It's remembered just as much for the fierce tackles and the incredibly controversial sending off of Argentine captain Antonio Rattin, who famously sat right on the royal red carpet in protest, by the way, as it is for England's narrow 1-0 win. It was this gritty, bruising encounter that tested the absolute limits of Ramsey's defensive setup. By the time we hit the semifinal, we're looking at a total clash of styles. You had England's absolute fortress of a defense pitted against the tournament's surprise package, Portugal, led by the prolific, lightning-fast Eusebio. It was your classic, unstoppable force meeting an immovable object. The ultimate stress test for the Wingless Wonders. But a brilliant brace, 2 absolutely crucial goals from Bobby Charlton meant they had somehow survived the gauntlet. Part 3, the ultimate climax at Wembley. 96,000. That is the massive number of spectators packed into Wembley Stadium on July 30th. Just imagine the deafening roar in there and the crushing, almost suffocating weight of national expectation resting squarely on the shoulders of the players on that pitch. The tension was just unbelievable. And the game itself, a total emotional roller coaster. I mean, it starts with the absolute worst possible scenario. Helmut Haller strikes first for West Germany. But England responds brilliantly, right? We get a quick Jeff Hurst equalizer. Then, in the second half, Martin Peters scores, putting England literally minutes away from glory. And then, sheer heartbreak. Wolfgang Weber scrambles in this dramatic last-minute equalizer for West Germany. The whistle blows. We are going to extra time. Right, so we head to extra time, and this is where the match is cemented into absolute legend, and honestly, where we get the biggest controversy of the entire tournament. Geoff Hurst strikes a massive third goal, but the ball famously hits the underside of the crossbar and bounces straight down. So, did it actually cross the line? Well, the linesman said yes, but even decades later, that single bounce remains fiercely debated. But hey, there is zero debate about how the match ended. In the dying seconds, you have these desperate West Germans throwing absolutely everyone forward for a miracle equalizer. On the flip side, Geoff Hurst breaks away into the open field. He smashes the ball home for his hat trick, sealing a stunning 4-2 victory just as Wolstenholme delivers his legendary "It is now" line. The tension finally breaks. Wembley just erupts, and it all culminates in this one defining visual. Captain Bobby Moore climbing those steps, wiping his muddy hands on the velvet box before receiving the Jules Rimet Trophy from Queen Elizabeth II. Moore hoists it aloft. That single image remains the absolute zenith of English football.
Part 4. The Eternal Legacy.
So, what does this all mean? Why was this so much more than just a victory? Well, for the English public, 1966 became the ultimate symbol of a massive post-war cultural shift. Arriving right in the middle of the swinging 60s, it was this moment of profound national pride and unity that just anchored the culture. The players, the boys of 66, were instantly cemented as national icons, a status they hold for sure even 60 years later. It transcended the sport to become a defining chapter of modern British history. But strictly in sporting terms, it established this massive, almost inescapable shadow. Even with critics still debating the officiating or Ramsey's defensive style, the achievement stands completely alone. It became the ultimate benchmark, the gold standard against which every single subsequent England side has been, and honestly continues to be, ruthlessly measured. Which leaves us with a pretty big question. Will the benchmark set by the boys of 66 ever actually be eclipsed? Because every time a new squad steps onto the pitch for a major tournament, they aren't just playing the team in front of them, are they? They're playing against the ghosts of Wembley, against Alf Ramsey's tactical masterclass, and against the immortal legacy of 1966. Thanks so much for joining me for this explainer, and keep questioning the history behind the game.